All right, hello everyone. We are live now. I'm gonna kind of give everybody a chance to kind of hop on the chat and everything else. I am Lonnie,
I'm Mark.
making his grand return to Untitled Nerd Network. God, man, you've been gone for a minute.
I went and got a job that actually lets me work hours.
Yeah. We actually have a
Music.
new subscriber.
Oh,
I'm
new
not
subscriber.
100% sure. I'm sure it'll pop up. Anyway, if Steve, if you hear that music, that is a new subscriber that we've gotten. But I'm sure it'll pop up in the chat. But anyway, we are here. That was actually
The collector.
Tex the Collector is just subscribed to the channel. Thank you.
Hey,
for
Tex.
Thank you for the subscription. Remember that we are actually giving away a Nintendo Switch to one of our first 1,000 subscribers. And we're getting really close. I think we're now at like 976. So, but anyway, the reason we are here tonight is always a very, very awesome time to have this man on the channel. This is his third time on the channel, I think.
Second with me and you.
Yeah,
And
and
then
then we did one other one for the anniversary, like last year. But yeah, we're here with Mr. Steve Borock, the president of CBCS Grading. Welcome to the interview. Welcome to the video, the channel, Steve. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again, guys. I always love hanging out with you.
I absolutely love having you on. You're always a fun interview, like, because we always make it to that hour mark. We're like, God, we still got stuff to talk about.
Well, then we do that over the phone afterwards, so it's okay.
That's all good. So,
Yeah.
First off, congratulations, new grandbaby.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm really excited. My daughter gave birth yesterday, Atticus Spencer Troyer, and beautiful baby. Mom's doing good, a little sore, but baby's perfectly healthy and 8 pounds, 7 ounces. Beautiful.
I like the name, Atticus. I like that. That's a good name.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah. So, let's see here. I sent you some pictures earlier. We'll get to that in a little bit. But why, when last time we talked, I remember you said you don't actually collect individual issues. You collect graphic novels. Has there been anything that you've read since the last time we talked about a year and a half ago that's just really caught your attention that you think our viewers would be interested in picking up and reading?
Well, I mean, I hope so. It's not a superhero book, but it's really cool. I just finished the first 2 trades of Seven to Eternity.
Okay.
And it's really, really good. Really digging it. Can't wait for the 3rd trade. Let's see, what else have I been reading? I'm about to start All-Star Batman. I've heard really good things about it, so I picked that up. And what else? I finished reading DC's Injustice, which was a lot of fun. So I did pick up the new Injustice, Ground Zero, Harlequin, and I didn't love it. But that's okay. You can't love everything.
It seems like you had mentioned Injustice last time we did an interview.
I vaguely
Well,
remember.
it's been going on for years.
Yeah.
They're on Injustice 2 now, so...
Yeah.
So, and I understand your thing about Harley. Was it just because what was it about it that didn't grab you? Because personally, I think she's being oversaturated a lot, like, even though I'm wearing a Deadpool shirt, Deadpool is. But, like, they took the original concept for Harley and, for what they did with the animated series, and they brought her into the comic books, and I think that what they've done with her since in the comic books has pretty much destroyed the character. What's your feeling on that?
Well, actually, I don't have a big opinion on Harley Quinn because I don't read a lot of Harley Quinn books.
Right.
And I really did enjoy her in Injustice, except for the last one. And maybe it was me. Maybe I was in a really weird head when I was reading it. Maybe it's different writers. I don't remember if they changed writers. But, I mean, yeah, there's oversaturation of certain characters. I've dropped most of my Marvel trades. because they just keep rebooting and they keep changing everything. And rebooting is really, really, really good and really important. I mean, if you think about it, and you go back to the 40s, right?
Right.
And all these great superheroes, and then superheroes kind of died out. And then in 1956, you have a reboot, Showcase 4, with a new Flash, right?
Yep.
Which brought along with that the dawn of the Silver Age. Okay? And without Showcase 4 and Brave and Bold 28, First Justice League, of course, then Stan Lee wouldn't have been pressured to write superhero books. He was happy writing science fiction and horror. Basically, reboots work, but you have to give it a lot of time. You can't reboot every year, every 2 years, every 3 years. It doesn't make sense. You lose your readers. Having a number one on a book sells a lot of copies, but it doesn't help the hobby at all.
Right.
And I'm about the hobby. And I'd rather have a great story and okay art than an okay story and great art. Because you want to connect to these characters. And that's what made Spider-Man so cool, was you were able to connect with Spider-Man. You'd never seen in comics any kind of hero that you could actually relate to. It was always, here's the good guy, here's the bad guy, good guy fights the bad guy, time out, over, right? Then you brought in emotion. Stan Lee was brilliant about that. And so with these reboots, you're not giving the characters enough time to develop. So a good writer like Jeff Johns or Mark Waid, they know the history. James Robinson wrote the Starman series. That was incredible. It was probably one of the greatest series of the 90s. It's my favorite.
I agree.
Absolutely. He knew the history, so he dealt with the 1940s Starman, the 1950s Starman, and you dealt with the new Starman. You dealt with Shade, who was a villain and turned into an anti-hero. It was fantastic. And that was a great comic, and it didn't need any kind of reboot, right? It was just here's the character. You had a great writer and fantastic artists, too. I mean, Tony Harris was doing, incredible covers, and it's just fantastic. I actually own the cover of a Starman number 7, the original art. It's one of my favorite pieces.
Oh, wow.
But I think with Harlequin, Deadpool, look, the fans love it, right? So who am I to say anything about it? But I believe that there is oversaturation, and sometimes less is more. You didn't see when, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, when Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil took over and started doing that, you didn't see a bunch of Green Lantern and Green Arrow books.
It was just that one book.
Take away from this incredible storyline that dealt with, the political problems in America, and this fantastic art that Neil was doing. I happen to be very lucky that I actually own a page from the first book, and it's the 4th page of the story where Green Arrow shows up and starts throwing the cans at Green Lantern, telling him to leave this guy alone. It's really incredible that I have it. I can't believe it. But anyway, so I digress, I should say.
Perfectly fine.
Basically, I've been staying away from a lot of stuff and reading more independent stuff. right now, I can't even give you my reading list that's coming up because I just packed up the books for the trip to Dallas and packed up books that are going to be put on the move. I do have the Atomic Legion out by Mike Richardson and Bruce Zick, published by Dark Horse.
Okay.
And it looks unbelievable. It's really looks fun, and Mike Richardson's always been great for a long, long time. And I really like Zick's art. So I'm having fun with that. I'm going to have fun with that, hopefully. Anyway, so back, like I said, Deadpool and Harley Quinn, they're all over the place. We see in the grading room, New Mutants 98 every day. We see Batman Adventures 12 every day. We see them in super low grade, and we see them in super high grade.
I want to ask you, Steve, you're talking about the move to Dallas. We haven't talked to you since the acquisition by Beckett. Can you tell us some details about that, like how that came to be? Because everybody knows that, CBCS, I guess, is it a partnership or did Beckett actually acquire the company?
Okay, so here's the deal. Beckett is owned by Eli Global.
Okay.
Which is a Fortune 500 company. And we merged with Beckett because it's like one-stop shopping, right? There's a lot of people collect cards and collect comics. So we decided to go merge with Eli Global, but merge with Beckett. And they have a really great name in the industry, really well-known name, which will help us. And the shared resources will be fantastic. We'll be in the same building, so we'll have the shipping and encapsulation, engineers for plastic. We're looking at a new holder. We're looking at the magazine holder. They have BAS, which is Beckett Authentication Services, for signatures, which is fantastic. So not only can you do comic book signatures, but you can do Hollywood signatures, and if you have a sports comic signed by Mickey Mantle or something.
Oh, was that the case beforehand? Like, see, I was under the impression that, like, let's say I had a Captain America book, and I had, let's say, like Chris Evans, the one who portrays Captain America in the comic. Could you guys have authenticated that before?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Because his signature is really common and out there. But what BAS can do is they have the knowledge of the vintage era, and they're fantastic. So, like I said, if somebody like, I don't know, Barbara Eden had signed a I Dream a Genie comic, back in the day, they'll be able to verify the signature.
Oh, okay, so that's I didn't know if there was like a limitation on what you guys were originally able to do as far as verification. Like, I didn't know how wide the database went.
Right. Well, now the database is deep and the experts are fantastic. So, like I said, this is a fantastic move. Also got rid of the investors, which is real nice. When you have investors and you tell them it'll take 5 years to make money, they say great, great, great. And then
a year and a half later, they're like, where's my money?
Where's the money? Right.
Yeah.
So, it's nice to be able to put money into graders, people in customer service, receiving, encapsulation. It's fantastic. I'm nervous about the move because I live in Florida. It's paradise, you know. And I'm going to move to Dallas, which is a big city. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm from New York City. We grew up on Long Island and lived in Manhattan after that. And I love the city, but the traffic in Dallas is insane. We actually were going to get a house that was like 20, 30 minutes out, or 20 miles or 30 miles out. But with the traffic, it was going to be like an hour and a half commute. I was like, forget this. So we're actually downsizing our house and moving into a townhouse. The kids have grown up, and so we don't need such a big house. But I'm going to miss my pool and my lanai, and sitting out by it. I'm standing right out my lanai right now, just enjoying the weather.
So I've been to Texas once. I've been to Austin, Texas. And you're moving like this month?
Actually, I'll be work with the movers on Thursday.
Okay. So
this will be my last public or podcast or anything until I hit San Diego probably in July.
Oh, sweet. So I'll just say this: when I went to Austin, it was the middle of June, and we were packing up my landlord's uncle's 4-bedroom home. It is hotter than like anything on God's green earth in Texas. So I feel sorry for you. I'm just gonna say that straight up. Don't.
No, it's hot in Florida too, man.
Oh.
But the thing is, central air is everywhere. So you're hot from when you leave the door of your house till the AC works in your car, and then you go somewhere and you walk out of your car. It's hot. You walk in somewhere and it's cold.
Yeah, but the difference between Texas and Florida is you have shade trees in Florida. There's no trees in Texas.
Yeah, that came courtesy of Cindy Sarah in the chat. She said no trees in Texas.
No, I mean, because like I've been in Florida in May. I went down to Universal last May, so I know how hot it is in May there. There's
especially
just
Universal. I mean, that's landlocked. That's humidity central.
Yep.
I don't get humidity where I'm at. I'm on the West Coast.
Oh, there you go.
So we get the breeze off of the Gulf, which is really nice.
All right. So I have a follow-up question for you when you were talking about, seeing a number one issue, like a number one on an issue. I'm wondering if this is why you're going away from Marvel books now. What do you think about them? They went back to the legacy numbering, and a whole bunch of us as fans were like, yes, legacy numbering. And now they're going back to this mixed new number one, but they're keeping the legacy number underneath it. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a marketing thing, and corporations do what corporations do, and they know that they can hook people in by putting a number one on things. At the end of the day, the fans are the ones who will decide what they like and what they don't like with their pocket, right, with their money. They'll buy a bunch of number ones because people believe that buying a number one is a great investment, when sometimes it's not. I mean, back in the 70s, I bought like 20 copies of Shazam number one for cover price and 20 cents a piece, and I couldn't sell them for years. Now they're hot, but we're talking from from the 70s up till 2018. So it's kind of hard to hold on to those books.
It's a very long-term investment.
Yes, very.
So,
but I think look, I think the fans lose out. The hardcore fans, the hobbyists. I think that the speculators lose because they can only make money on a certain title, or might not make money at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, this dual numbering system is not new. Marvel did it with the Fantastic Four back in, like, what was it, like 2001? Or,
yeah, right at the end of the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, because I remember it was like right around...
Right, that was a reboot.
Yeah.
And that was after 1960, right?
Well, yeah, because
I mentioned originally that the reboots are cool if you put enough time between them.
Unlike DC, who does one every 5 years.
Right.
Hey, yeah, we can talk bad about DC all we want, but I tell you what, Doomsday Clock is one of the best series out right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Really?
Now that's what? Which series is that?
Doomsday Clock is the new 12-issue limited series that they started back in like October and November, where the characters from the Watchmen series go into DC.
So I hear it's really good, and I'm once again, I read the trade,
Right.
so I have to wait for it to finish.
Well, good luck with that. It took them 3 months to get issue 5 out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, I'm old. I waited a year for the final issue of Camelot 3000 to come out.
Oh my goodness, I haven't heard about that book in forever.
Or what about the
Such a
issue?
great series.
Oh, it was. I loved Camelot 3000.
Oh,
I'm a huge Arthurian legend fan. So when Camelot 3000 came out, I ate that up like candy.
You remember how long it took Kevin Smith to finish that Spider-Man Black Cat series?
Well, yeah.
I sure did, because I dropped it. It took so long. I was still buying the issues back then. It's incredible. I mean, look, they gave Kevin Smith quite a wide berth, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With that.
Well, I mean, his take on Green Hornet was really weird too.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to ask you. I sent you some pictures earlier. You said you had a chance to look them over.
Briefly.
Okay.
Actually, but I can get back to my computer. And,
Okay. Well, I'm going to put one of them up on the screen real quick for our viewers. So what we're looking at is an issue of Hulk 181.
From you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. It's gonna take me a second to find it. I'm really sorry, but
Not a problem.
I get so many emails.
Not a problem.
Okay, so I have it up in front of me.
Okay. So.
And what kind of questions do you have, and which picture should I click on?
Well, I mean, let's first off just looking at the general cover. So I've got a series of questions about this for you, because here's the story behind this. This is a comic book that a friend of mine in a collecting group that I'm a member of was looking at buying. And he came into us and he showed us the pictures that I sent you. And he was like, what do you guys think this thing is worth? Because the gentleman is asking for X amount of dollars. And I'm not really into pricing or grading or anything like that. I just read them. And so my smartass remark was, I think it's worth $25, which was the cover price.
Yeah, I wish it was worth $25. I'd buy a bunch of them.
So here's the reason I said that. Whoever was selling it to him had wrote his name on it. There was other writing on it. The spine looked fairly damaged. And the Marvel stamp from the inside had been ripped out, which, from my understanding, is a really big thing for collectors.
That's a common thing for that particular issue, too.
So my question to you is, a couple of fold, as a professional in your industry, number one, what would you and I know the pictures are not really great quality, just as a gander, what would you grade this book at? And if you had to put a price tag on it, what price tag would you put on it?
Okay, well, just look at research of sales. Basically, let me give you a quick, let's say that's a 1.0, but it's a fair, right?
Okay.
Incomplete.
That's probably a realistic grade for that book, with the writing and the tears and everything else.
I don't know. I can't grade from scans. If I could, I could sit on my couch and grade all day long. Right? I wouldn't have to count pages. I wouldn't have to check for restoration.
Like I said, it's
the bottom line is that the last sale of a 1.0 looks like it's around $500. And this is Hulk 181. This is the AF-15, the Amazing Fantasy 15 of that generation, the Action One of that generation, right?
First appearance
This is Wolverine, man. This is, people love it. You talk about saturation of a character, right?
I've said that before.
you know, the Claremont Cockrum run introduced him, but Byrne really turned the corner with Claremont on Wolverine. And Wolverine, you know, had its first limited series, which what Miller did, which was unbelievable. I mean, and then you had Buscema working on the Wolverine series, you know, that's number one on up to a certain point. Then you had Wolverine Origins, and I mean, you know, everything. It's spanning years upon years. This is a character with legs.
Right. Short legs,
like
but legs.
Spider-Man and anybody else. But, you know, the Marvel value stamp is cut out of this book.
Right.
And it's not in high grade, even without it. You know, it doesn't look high grade. But, you know, there's writing on it. I mean, it's a low-grade book.
And that was, to me, like I said, I'm not that deep into the comic book, you know, like pricing and grading and stuff like that. My friend is. My friend, like, runs his own comic book business. But when I saw the writing on the cover, I was like, it's worth a quarter. You know, because...
Just because of the writing? Wow. Man,
I mean, I actually saw a book. It's funny that we talk about writing on the covers because, you know, I follow a lot of the CBCS Facebook pages and, you know, the groups and things where people post. And I believe it was in the collectors group or maybe one that you specifically had posted. I can't really remember, but it was an issue, I think it may have been of Wonder Woman.
The Wonder Woman 1 from the Eldon collection.
Did it have like a little writing or somebody's name written on it?
It had Eldon's name on it. Sure, they're very coveted books, the Eldon books.
Right, yeah, but there's a difference between...
The name takes it down a bit, and there was some writing that was erased, which was an arrival date, which we normally don't take off for, but we do take off for erasure. That book was graded out 8.0. Wonder Woman 1, 8.0. I mean, the thing was beautiful. White pages, fantastic. But, yeah, there's some writing on it, so you guys knocked it down.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that grading is not just a science. You can't say, okay, it has writing on it, it's Avicii. Right?
Right.
You have to look at the entire book and say, okay, what will the industry accept? What's the highest grade I can give it without being wrong? Because the submitter is looking for the highest grade possible.
Right.
And the buyer is looking for the most accurate grade. So you want to give it the best possible grade without being wrong. And without the writing and the erasure, that book might have been a 9.2.
Woo!
The difference is about $100,000 easy.
Ooh, okay.
Holy crap.
I'm in the wrong line of work.
Yeah.
So, back to this
Yeah,
Hulk 181.
I stay away from pricing because I'd be impartial. But, you know, after we graded that book, I sure looked it up. I was curious.
So you're saying that a grade 1 of 181, you said you saw one that went for 500 and something, and you know, and again, we've discussed that you don't collect individual series and stuff like that. But if you had to put a price tag on this book that I sent you pictures of, ballpark
well,
it.
like I said, I just pulled up some. I used the computer.
Right.
And I pulled up some data, sales data. Now, if you you got to remember that $500, okay, for that book is not insane. I mean, to me it is, but that's because, you know, I collected Golden Age and Silver Age books. I wasn't a bronze person. And before X-Men 1 came out, that book was in the quarter bin. Sorry, Giant Size X-Men 1 came out. That book was in the quarter bin. Right? And the last sale of a 9.8 certified was $21,500.
almost makes me sick.
See, because the reason I keep asking, because you said look it up. Well, when I looked it up, I found one on eBay for like $77.
What was it, a
So-
graded book?
Yeah, I don't think it was a graded book, but and the one that I've got pictures of isn't a graded book. It's just in a board and cover. You know, it's a bagged and board.
I mean, man, that book is so.
Buy it, man.
That book is so hot that you could get one without a cover and it would still fetch.
Well, yeah, and it's one of the funny things that Mark Haspel and I talk about. Mark Haspel is one of the most knowledgeable people in comic books. He started our competition with us. Brilliant guy, fantastic. And he turned to me about 5 years into certification and said, you know what? If we bought every coverless Amazing Fantasy 15 in 1999, when we knew certification was coming, we could retire today.
Wow, yeah. I do. I see that it's crazy because even though a book doesn't have a cover, it's still that book.
Yep.
And they're not worthless. You know, somebody might look at it, but you can't get a copy of Uncanny X-Men 378 without a cover and it ever be worth anything. But the old books, a lot of them, I mean, like how many known copies are there of Action Comics #1? I mean, it's.
Oh, I'm not sure.
I was thinking it was like in the
I've
double
created
digits.
a bunch, but I mean, there's hidden copies. I mean, the best copy in the world will never be graded. It's owned by a private collector who's the largest Batman and Superman collector in the world. He has the Edgar Church Mile High copy. It's probably going to grade out 9.4 or higher. I actually got to see it in 1997, and that was the last time he ever showed it to anybody. And it was stunning, this Action one. I mean, stunning. I've owned 2 copies that were nowhere near as nice. And I've graded copies, and I've held it 9.0 in my hand, but this copy was glossy, white pages, sharp corners. I mean, it was so gorgeous. It's incredible. It will never be graded. He does not need to grade his books because he's not going to sell them. And he doesn't need the protection because he keeps it in the Mylar and a backing board. And he keeps it in climate controlled environment. And he gets to look at it and leaf through it. He's a real fan. He was offered quite a bit of money for it many, many, many years ago, and over market by quite a bit, maybe double market, and he did not want to sell it because he knew that if he sold it, he'd want it back and have to pay for it and have to pay more than he sold it for.
Fair enough.
He's a true collector. I mean, this guy is a true hobbyist.
Yeah. It's. Man, that book, not only is Action Comics #1 a popular book, but that particular issue fetches a premium because of its particular history.
Well, sure. I mean, a single wrap from that book, or even a single page, goes for crazy money. I mean,
Just a page.
It's really, really, really nuts. But it's not. Because Action 1 started the superheroes, right? And probably the most, besides maybe Spider-Man and Batman, it's the most recognized superhero in the world. I mean, this is modern-day mythology, right? This is total pop culture. So when you talk about it in Action 1, right, you're talking about a book that most people wish they could own. Okay? So a coverless copy sold in 2016 for
need to go find my dad's comic book collection.
Yeah.
Oh, dear God.
My dad took me to Brooklyn, from Long Island to Brooklyn, to go get his comics at my grandmother's house. And he's like, oh, yeah, I have Batman 1 and Superman 1 and all this stuff. And we took the 45-minute drive to Brooklyn, which felt like, hours for me. But we get there and we start going through this little room in the basement with all this stuff, his old baseball glove and some trophies, whatever. Can't find the comics. He says to my grandmother, he says, Mom, where's the comics? She goes, oh, I gave those to the neighborhood kids. I cried.
Oh, my God.
I was like 11 years old. And I was like, no!
That had to hurt.
Man.
But that's a story that you hear from everybody.
Yep.
My mother threw out my comics.
I want to ask you, Steve, we've got somebody in the chat, Tim the Collector, wants to know, will CBCS ever release a graded comic book product mystery box? I guess something along the lines of like a subscription Loot Crate box or something with graded books?
I don't think so. We don't buy and sell. I mean, that's how we stay impartial, right? Is, once again, I had to look up value online.
Yeah.
I treat every book as if it's worth the same amount of money. So when I'm grading a Spawn 1 or a Spider-Man 300, I give it the same attention that I give to an Action Comics number 12, right? I look for restoration, make sure the page is there. I make sure I grade it as correctly as I can. I mean, I'm human. I'm sure I make mistakes here and there. But I think buying and selling comics for a grading service is probably a bad move.
Conflict of interest, almost.
Yes, definitely.
And that's something we
I
discussed.
don't want to be grading a book wondering what the value is, and if I'm going to be making money off of it. And that's one of the reasons that CBCS employees are not allowed to grade their own books. First of all, they don't need to, right?
Yeah.
If they're buying a book that's raw from a legitimate seller, they have a 7 or 10-day return policy, so they can get the book in. They can show it to me and Wes Steffen, and we can tell them if it's restored or not. We can tell them what we think the grade is. But the other thing is, once again, conflict of interest. It's another reason that when we opened the company, I made sure that the employees were, from executives, graders, to slabbers, customer service, were not allowed to have anything bought for them, like a meal or even a gift. I said, hey, Christmas cards, or Hanukkah cards or Kwanzaa cards, that's fine, or even a thank you card is nice, but no gifts. We don't ever want to look like there is anything except impartiality.
Okay.
That is a very ethical way of doing it, and that's something that came up the last time we talked to you, and something that I actually thought was quite admirable about the company is the fact that you do everything you can to stay impartial. We've got another question from the chat from Paul Holmes, who wants to know when.
Oh, hey, Paul.
Yeah. So I'm really confused by this question. Maybe you'll get it. When will a census be available, and about how many books have been graded?
Right, so a census is basically how many books have been graded of a certain issue, and of all the books that we've done. Now, originally, we said it would take about 4 years before we would release it, because you don't want a census or a population report that says, like, let's say we accurate, right?
Right.
You want to show people that that there's a bunch of books and what's out there. So we're working on the census, and what's really, really cool, because we're hobbyists, is that anytime we get a CGC label, we send it, we wait for a bit, we send it to CGC so they can fix their census, and they send us labels they get in from our books, because people always try to do crossovers or try to press and regrade or whatever. And so this way the census will be accurate, which is best for the hobby. I'm hoping within the next year that we'll have the census. I'm working with Beckett pretty hard right now with their IT department to get a census, and that's a census, but also collector's sets. People love collector's sets, and we're going to try to do that too. But everything is up in the air right now because we're dealing with the move, and we want to keep the move to the most minimum we can to not affect turnaround times. And luckily, almost every grader is coming with us, and we're going to be hiring graders as well, train. So the grading standards will stay the same, which will be fantastic.
Now, I do want to ask Steve, has there been any like research looked into as far as what kind of improvements, if any, we're expecting to see with turnaround times and the overall, time frames on some of the, grading and things like that after this move?
It's kind of funny because everything is on time except moderns and the expanded. And those are just a little behind. But it takes 3 months to get back a modern or expanded, and let's use the 2-day modern, right? Or you fast pass. You use the fast pass to get your books back quicker. We state our turnaround times, and people don't want to wait. We're in an age where it's Amazon Prime, right?
Yep.
2-day shipping, right? You can go on to your TV and get a movie that's just been released, basically, right? If you pay enough money, of course.
Right. I love that caveat. Good call. Good cover. No.
But if you want them, you want them graded correctly, and you want people to check for restoration. You want people to count your pages. You want people to make sure that they look for every little defect, right? It takes time. And the bottom line is that when I was with our competition, we had a 9-month wait at one point.
Ooh.
Wow.
People seem to forget this or didn't know it. And now that we say, the slow tiers take 3 months, they're like, oh, that's crazy. And it's like, well, if you're a collector, do you care if it's sitting in your house or our vault?
I'd rather it be in your vault, personally.
Right. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, as a seller, that's different, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to turn money around, and you want to buy your next collection. You need money, you need capital, because it's a business. But then spend the extra money and set to a faster tier.
There you go.
I really like your service. Y'all still have that, right? Where you can pay a little extra money to get the scan of the book after it's been graded?
Oh yeah, sure. Mhm. And we actually pick books to be put on our gallery on our website, cbcscomics.com. And if we pick your book, you get the scan for free.
There you go.
Yay!
That's cool. So, let's hear. Next question from our audience. First off, Paul says thanks for answering his question.
Now, Steve.
You're welcome, Paul.
Steve did kind of answer this earlier, but it's probably before everybody hopped on.
Yep. When do you think you did mention this earlier. When do you think CBCS will grade and slab magazine-sized comics? And thanks in advance for your answer.
That's from Ken Goach.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're actually looking at the plastics right now, and the molding. It takes hiccup. It takes a while to make a mold because they're hand polished, so it takes forever. You have to do the research, and then you have to get the plastics done. Like I said, nothing will be in play, if you will, until we move to Texas. But first, we're looking at developing a better holder. We want to stay cutting edge. I mean, we were so cutting edge when we opened that it forced our competition to make changes, and they made such a bad change on their holder that it was ruining books.
That was like the warping incident, wasn't it? Or the water that kind of had the waves or something?
Once there's the waves, there was the pressure. It was actually splitting spines. We actually reluctantly waited a while because I was hoping they were going to change it. But reluctantly, we gave a discount if they wanted to cross over the holder that it was currently into CBCS. Because we, as hobbyists, we did not want books ruined.
Yeah. Now I will say, like I've watched, I've really kept track of the company on social media and things like that. And as recently as I think today, you do have people who, you always have people who are like, oh, you got to pick Marvel or you got to pick DC. Or, love one, hate the other. Praise one, bash the other.
Sure. I mean, people love Coke, people love Pepsi.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
it's going to happen.
You have
and
people.
Then you're also going to have people who just dislike you, right? So there's always the 2% that hate you. And they're the most vocal. And they also, as submitters, that 2% cause you 90% of your problems.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, they call up and go, oh, my book looks so slight, bit crooked in the holder. And it's like, well, that's because it's miscut. Oh, but I want to send it in a free holder. And it's like, well, you can send it in a free holder, but the book's miscut. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm sorry. Don't get me wrong, because, we're human, and mistakes happen on occasion. But we actually fix any problems that are our fault, free of charge.
There you go.
That's really awesome. And like what I was getting at is as recently as today, I've seen people actually get on the CBCS groups and complain or badmouth the competition, and you're really quick to get on there and just kind of squash that and be like, hey, don't be insulting. There's room for two companies in this.
Absolutely. There's no reason to badmouth anybody. Don't get me wrong. PGX, yeah, they're criminals, right? But the bottom line is that, why waste your time and breath being hateful? There's no reason for it. This is a great hobby. We should all get along. I mean, yeah, there's two companies. Great. So what? Pick the one you like. Or use both. I mean, it doesn't matter. And we have to be happy. That's why we collect the comic books. We want to be happy. And yes, once again, it goes back to that 2% that does not want to be happy. Right? They're just curmudgeons.
Now we have Jesse Olson in the chat who says to follow up on Paul's question from earlier. Do you have any idea, just ballpark, as to how many comics your company has graded since 2014?
You know, I haven't looked it up, but I'll tell you, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I get there between 6:30 and 7:30 most days, and I stay till 5:30, and I work weekends. I can't imagine how many books I've graded.
How long? I probably ask you this every time I ever talk to you, but how long does it take you to grade a book? A regular run of the mill?
Well, yes, we've had this conversation. So it depends, right? I'll get a modern book in, and I do a quick restoration check, count pages, look for defects, put notes, and it doesn't take very long. But then you get in an Action Comics number 8.
And things slow down.
And it's restored. Right. It's restored, wraps are married, the back cover is wrong, but I have to go online to check the back cover. It could take a while. It could take 15, 20 minutes. But we charge a lot of money for higher-end books. Now, don't get me wrong. Once again, I can get a Spawn 1 in, and it has restoration. And it takes me, a couple of minutes to find the restoration. But it's easier on modern books. It really sticks out if it's done well or done wrong. Now, on vintage books, if it's done really well, it takes a little bit longer. And then all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, I saw it dot a color touch. I better check the staples. I better check every wrap. Because you're talking about a $100,000 book. Like that Wonder Woman 1 we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Checking it for restoration took 15 minutes. And then we graded.
I want to know, some people at everyday jobs, we'll be sitting at a computer or something, or we'll be, walking around doing rounds or something along those lines. And next thing you know, you look at your watch and you're like, oh man, I totally do not remember the last 45 minutes. Like I have no clue what I've just done. Do you ever have those moments?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember most books that I've graded. If I get an FF44 in 7.0, I don't remember it literally 5 minutes after I graded it.
That's kind of
because
messed up.
I'm grading other books, and I'm concentrating on other books.
So you're
now,
going.
If I get a Wonder Woman 1 Elgin copy, I remember that.
Yeah.
So you're basically you're kind of like a customer service person sitting in a cubicle, like all the normal regular customers you don't remember, but that one psycho sticks out.
Sure, but it also happens the opposite way.
Right.
Where we got it in a book just recently. Do not remember which book it was. Once again, it's bizarre that I don't remember which book it was. Had 4 covers, right? Which is a printing defect normally, which is a really cool thing to have.
Right.
But this one had married covers. So whoever, I don't know, the submitter, the person who sold it to the submitter, but basically the covers are from other books of the same issue.
I'm going to, what we're going to do, we had somebody, Paul Holmes said one of his favorite perks from CBCS is the grader's notes, for sure. And
Sure.
just to kind of test this live on the air, I have my CBCS certified Uncanny X-Men 244. First appearance of Jubilee is actually graded a 9.8. And
There will probably be no graders notes on that
that
point.
probably
There are a couple
not.
of notes. Here, let's see here.
No, that's just the credits and stuff. What I want you to do is just go to CBCS. That's
Okay.
on CBCScomics.com, right?
Right. But the other thing is that you could take your phone, and on the back of the label is a
Scan
QR
code, yeah.
code, and you put that up against your phone with a QR reader, which is free,
I don't have a QR reader.
and it'll bring up the grader's notes. But now on a 9, 8, 9, 9, or 10, there's not going to be any notes.
Oh, okay. Well, I tried.
There's no reason for it.
Yeah,
Now,
we were
if you have
doing.
a 9/6 and under, there'll be grader's notes.
Okay.
And that just kind of lets you know why it is the way.
Why
it
you
is.
got graded the way you graded. That's kind of a cool thing. Text that collector wants to know what the most bizarre comic book you've ever received is that you can remember, apparently. And Paul asked for clarification of Silver and Golden Age on that question.
Well, the clarification of Silver and Golden Age is kind of bizarre. Okay, because there's Atomic Age in between.
Right. And there's an Iron Age in there somewhere.
But some people don't recognize the Atomic Age. So Silver Age starts with Showcase 4 from 1956. That's where the reboot happens.
Give me this.
Right?
Heading it. Right.
Now, the other question was...
So basically, it breaks down to the same question. What is the most bizarre Silver Age book you've ever graded, and the most bizarre Golden Age book you've ever graded?
Well, oh, wow. Okay, Silver Age was a Thor 156. I think I have the number right. It was a 10.0.
Ooh. For Thor 156?
It was from Chuck Rosansky's Warehouse Find. He owns Mile High Comics. It was a perfect Silver Age book. We couldn't believe it. We looked so hard to find any defect. I mean, when you put out a 10.0, you really have to say, okay, I have to look through this with a, fine-tooth comb.
Right. And that's
But
pre-Simonson,
at the same
too.
time, I've graded some really bizarre stuff, like the cover for Action 10 is on the interior for Action 15, with the centerfold for, Action 23.
Yeah.
Really bizarre stuff. I remember once doing I think it was 5 cover John Wayne #1.
5 covers.
Yeah, 5 covers.
Just make sure I heard that right.
John Wayne #1.
Right. That was incredible. I'm seeing, because we're so good. We have Tim Bildhauser, who is our foreign comic expert. I'm seeing such really cool comics from South Africa, from Brazil, from everywhere. And Action Comics #1 from South Africa, I think, is the cover for Action 168. So that's pretty cool. I really dig seeing this stuff because, once again, I grade New Mutants 98 all day long, and Batman Adventures 12s all day long. Fantastic Four 48s every day. But I get this really cool foreign comic book, and I'm like, I've never seen this in my life. And I've graded a lot of comics in my life. I mean, an insane amount. And so seeing something I've never seen before makes my day.
That's pretty
Because,
awesome.
Once again, I'm a hobbyist. It's,
Yeah.
I love comic books. So, yeah, I love, Action Comics 1, but I've handled so many of them that when something comes across my desk, let's say a romance comic from the 50s that I've never seen in 9.4, because I've only seen it in like 4.0 or 5.0, it hits my desk as a 9.4. I'm like, this is friggin' cool, man.
Yeah.
So it's the rare ones that stand out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're actually at the 8:30 mark, the 1 hour mark, Steve. But I got one more question from the chat that I want to ask, and I'm not 100% sure I understand it. But will the full gallery ever be back online? Right now, it's just featured comics.
He touched on this a little while ago.
Yeah, I didn't know that y'all had like a full gallery of a bunch. I didn't.
Yeah, we're working on that. When we changed over to the new website, the person who designed it thought that it would be great just to show the newest comics
Yeah.
that we picked for the gallery, right? And so now we're in this IT funk where it's like, what's more important, right? Hopefully, at some point, the full gallery will be up.
Okay.
I have no clue. I'm always honest with you guys.
Yeah.
Very important. But at some point, there will be a full gallery.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
There you go, Jesse.
Well, we are going to go ahead and wrap the interview. We'll be on the phone with you for just a minute after we go off the air, Steve. Once again, thank you very much for coming on and talking to us. It's always a pleasure. You're always good for about once a year for us. I love the fact that, seriously, we started UNN right about the same time CBCS started. And
Sure. I mean, you guys have been great. And, Lonnie, we've been friends for a long time now. And
yeah, I believe we were talking during the summer of 2014. I mean, the company was brand new. And matter of fact, Untitled Nerd Network wasn't even conceived yet. And I had actually went and we did like a phone interview for a newsletter I'd written. And then I actually had the privilege of meeting Steve in person at Chicago Wizard World in 2014.
Yeah, that was cool.
I want to still get him down for Conuga.
I'm always happy to talk with you guys because you guys are collectors. You're real collectors. You're real hobbyists.
Yep.
And I'm hoping the people listening are the same. And it's just, it's a privilege to be on here. I'm just another hobbyist. And for you guys to want to talk to me is unbelievable to me.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve, it's actually, I feel privileged to be able to do what could possibly be your last interview in Florida.
That is kind of a cool thing.
It's really neat because whenever, I think the first time I ever talked to you on the air, you had just announced the signature authentication program.
Sure.
And we kind of got to break the news on that, which was really cool. It's just neat how our schedules tend to work out to where we always do those first and last,
Catch you at a pivotal moment,
Yeah.
And you were talking about collectors. Like I'm a huge reader. I learn a lot coming on here and talking to you. So I want to thank you for that.
So that's why I say hobbyists instead of collectors a lot, because hobbyists don't have to collect. They just have to love the medium.
Oh yeah,
That's
And that's
true.
what's so important, is the love for the medium.
That is, like,
But
hobbyists
once
can
again,
enjoy.
I really appreciate, the fact that you all have me on, and, I just hope the audience enjoys it. It doesn't find me too boring.
oh no.
And, well, you don't know, man.
We have several people in the chat thanking you for your time. Jesse, Ken, Paul all said thank you for the interview and great new stuff in the interview. I mean, our viewers love it. You enjoy it. We enjoy it. We're gonna have to keep doing this.
Always.
All right, well, if you don't mind a shameless plug, tell them to go to cbcscomics.com.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
shameless plug away.
And on Facebook, we have the CBCS Comics and the CBCS Comic Collectors Club.
That I will
And-
say, if you're at all a comic book fan, being a part of that collectors group on CBCS on the Facebook pages, a wealth of information, good photos, a lot of the stuff that's just. A lot of times it's just neat to see your reaction when you post stuff on there that came across your desk.
Yeah, but what's nice about it is that I actually answer questions and I react to the fans of comics, and it's just a great place for me to hang out. Once again, it's about being a hobbyist.
Yep. All right. Again, Steve, thank you for coming on. We're going to go ahead and wrap the interview. Again, Steve Borock from CBCS is what looks like his last interview from Florida before they moved to Dallas, Texas to relocate with, Beckett. So that's going to be really cool. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. I'm Lonnie.
I'm Mark, and once again we are sponsored by Infinity Flux in Hickson, Tennessee.
Yes. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
I normally do it.
We've got to get the shameless plugs in, just like we've got to shamelessly plug, the CBCScomics.com.
Yes.
We've got to plug. We even got a copy here.
Yep. All right. Well, we're Untitled Nerd Network, and we will be back, I think, tomorrow. No, we're going to be back Thursday night for a Marvel Ultimate Alliance stream. So we'll see everybody Thursday night. Thanks for watching. Everybody have a good, safe night. And again, Steve, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Y'all have a great night.
All right. You too.